Okay, so now that you're a few days into this project, let's say that you use watercolors or that you use markers to put down the first layer of color, and now you're interested in adding a little bit more value to make your creature, thing, object come to life. And so you can see my Yoda here. I've watercolored, but it's pretty basic and flat. So in my sketchbook, what I've done is I went and grabbed a lot of green color pencils because Yoda's green, and so I'm going to need to understand the value. And you can see now that I've gotten them a little bit closer, you can kind of see the difference in the value tones. And what I've done is I've colored fairly well, so saturation, and then labeled the numbers of the color pencil. So that way, when I'm going through these, I know exactly what pencil to grab. And so I want to start off with something a little bit darker, so I'm going to go with my 911 pencil. So I'm going to figure out where my 911 is, and I'm going to start coloring that really softly inside these darker areas where I know his value is going to be a little bit darker. And then I'm going to start to fade my saturation. So you can see as I get further out here onto the cheek, I'm fading the saturation. I'm not coloring as hard. And so I'm just going to kind of place these where I believe the value to be darker. And then as I get further away, I start to slowly work on that saturation level. So I'm starting to go to that 50 and 25% level saturation that we discussed previously in the other videos. And so I can sit here and I can just kind of put this tone, and you can already see what's happening. Yoda is starting to take on this different colorization, and he's starting to come to life a little bit more. And then I can grab a different pencil that might be a little bit darker, so my 908 looks like the next darkest green, and I can kind of buff up those values even a little bit more, but I'm not going to use it as much. And then I really, really like indigo blue as a value or a darkening agent. So I'm going to take a little bit of indigo blue rather than using black, and I'm really going to kind of beef up this dark area right here, so this way it gets super, super dark, almost a blackish quality. But it really starts to lend to the fact that this is really dark in that particular area. And so I'm going to create a different video, and I'm going to time-lapse it so that you guys can see what happens to this whole thing as I work. But you get the general idea. I'm going to use these greens and kind of go in and out, trading them so I can create a value system. And so you can kind of see I've already done my pizza. So I'll slide my pizza in, and you can kind of see what that does with the effect of colored pencils. So I'm going to put this back on, and then I'll create a second video, the time lapse, to show you what's going to happen with all these colored pencils as I continue to use them on Yoda's face. And so now that you guys have seen the video of the time lapse as well, you would just continue to use your color pencils as you see fit, and continue to just use your saturation levels, going from sometimes using full saturation to light saturation, and even adding the lighter colors as I've gone in, and I've selected now the lighter color pencils to help create different value techniques. I'm just working on blending, so I want to use my color pencils lightly when I'm coloring on previous colors. I want to use my color pencils a little bit harsher or harder when I'm coloring new values. And so you just continue to work on this over the next few days, and then you'd be surprised what happens to your picture. Again, I would do the same thing with colored pencils if I hadn't used markers or watercolors. But I'm just showing you the benefit of putting down a basic colorization with watercolor and now going over it with colored pencils, so you can kind of see how it starts to take effect in really influence how your art looks. And so just having fun, practicing, and playing around with different techniques and learning different things. I did forget to mention that dark umber is a great value as well for these really darker values. When you mix this with blue indigo and dark umber, which is 947, really kind of creates this nice black without having to use black in your art, because black really does flatten your work. And so, anyways, continue to play around. We'll cover more with colored pencils as the year goes on, but I just want to show you how you can start to use some basic value techniques.